So in any room, you're going to have a range of engagement. You'll have some people who appear more engaged than others. That is, they'll be more vocal, they'll be leaning in. You'll have some people that will appear more reticent. Some people actually may have equal levels of engagement, though the signals and cues they give may differ. We find that there are people who listen, muse, consider, who might not engage the discussion as much, but are traveling along with the group and are pretty focused. The encouragement then is to find ways to remind those that are taking a few minutes to think it through, to listen to the discussion before they respond, that you'd like to hear from them sooner rather than later. Sometimes I step in and I say things like, who's not commented yet in the room? That's a technique that I tend to use. On the other hand, you have some students that learn a lot through their own verbal interaction. I'm one of those people. And so one of the things that you have to manage in a classroom is people that are like me can find that they take up an inordinate amount of the airtime and their views get played out more often than those of others, with no bearing to the value of those views. So again, one of the things that I tend to say is, for those of you that tend to think out loud, take a few seconds and remind yourself that one of the things you might do is take a few more seconds to allow someone else to come in, because maybe that other point of view will be one that'll be helpful to all of us.
If the students are particularly quiet in class one day, one tactic I like to use is to ask them why. It may be because they haven't connected with the case, or they didn't really find anything compelling about the case, or they were confused about something. So asking why at the start is really a good way to get at the heart of why they're being so quiet. Sometimes it's just a low engagement day, and that definitely happens. And one way to kind of bring engagement up is to use the cold call and to kind of help facilitate conversations that way. Another way is to ask people to take different perspectives. So you can pose a question on the board, or ask someone to take a perspective that they might not naturally have and just kind of act that out to help facilitate discussions that way.
One of the easiest ways to engage the classroom and to get everybody engaged is to hold polls and vote. It's one of the most useful methods in Socratic training, and if you just simply hold a poll or hold a vote, you'll get students that normally don't participate, and it also gives you a signal on where you can take the direction. So I typically try to use 2 answers, whether it's a yes or no, or this direction or that direction, and then from there you can figure out where you want to direct the classroom next.
If my students are quieter than usual, I have a couple of methods for getting the conversation going. First of all, I think being comfortable with silence to a certain extent is okay. They'll often jump in if you give them the room to sort of have some time to think. We also use a cold call very often, so if it seems perhaps that they are just really reticent to participate, then we also have cold calls that we'll just use to get the conversation going. And we make them pretty specific, and I'll use 1 or 2 or sometimes even 3 to just get the conversation going. And once that silence is broken, it usually flows pretty well after that.